Well, hello everyone, and welcome to and/or welcome back to our East Coast based city here in City Skylines 2. As always, I'm your host and creator Legio, and we are getting back to work on our nameless city. Yeah, we really need to come up with a name here, guys, because I've got nothing and y'all have provided me nothing. So this is on all of us. But anyways, let's talk about what we did in the last episode, and then we'll talk about what we're doing in this episode. Last episode, which the link will be up here, so I don't forget, this is my reminder to do that, future Legio. In the last episode, we built the highway network, which looks pretty good, and it's been functioning pretty good. I've been letting the simulation run and making sure that all the lanes are connected, and so far they are. But the star of the show, so to speak, was this 5-leg interchange we have here, and I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I have watched it, and watching traffic go on this thing is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, and the feedback I got on this from you guys was also pretty awesome. I appreciate it. Keep the feedback coming, positive, negative, neutral, whatever. I'll read it. But enough of that. Let's talk about what we're doing in this episode, and this is going to be a big episode. I'm really excited for this one. In this episode, the title and thumbnail probably gave it away, but we are going to be working on the area around this lake. We are going to harness this lake to finally start growing our city. Yeah, we're finally going to start getting some residents in and giving them jobs and schools and stuff like that. So big episode. But my plan that I came up with was all because I was flying around this map trying to think of what to do, and I came across this stupid little icon down here. I didn't realize it when I first started playing the map, but this dam was right here. And I saw the lack of labor and lack of high skilled labor icons yelling at me. So I came in to investigate, and lo and behold, there's a dam there. And that gave me an idea. I am going to use a series of dams to water and power our city, because I never use dams. It's just something I've never really done in City Skylines 1 and or 2, so I think it's going to be a fun and unique thing for me, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But the thought process I have is we're going to use a couple different dams at the mouths and channels of this lake. And the thought process I have is we'll have maybe one here, and one down here. And I know as the city gets big enough, it's not going to be able to sustain the power completely, but overall, I think it'll work. But then that got me trying to find an area for inspiration, and I eventually did find one. Let me go ahead and flip over to that and show you what that looks like, guys. So during my search for inspiration for this build, I came across the town of Medford, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston, which is right down here. So that definitely checks the box for East Coast style. And what I liked most was this lake right here. This is Mystic Lake, which is a fantastic name for a lake. That's awesome. Really, kudos to you guys. Oh, and then down here they have Spy Pond. Y'all really know how to name bodies of water in Massachusetts. Good on you. But yeah, I like this because you have an upper Mystic Lake, clearly, and then you have a lower. Kind of similar to what we have going on our map. So that checks that box, but what I also liked is this dam right here, the Mystic Lakes Dam. Very straightforward, very simple. This is something I think we could easily recreate. This almost just looks like a City Skylines dam. Forget the pixelation, it just doesn't want to render. But yeah, that looks pretty good, and I think we can recreate this pretty simple. Be a pretty simple recreation. And while I'm pretty sure the Mystic Lake Dam doesn't produce electricity for the community, our dams are going to produce electricity. So there's that. The other thought I had behind these dams is their creation more or less made this body of water, which is going to be a reservoir that we're going to get our drinking water from. So the dams are kind of serving two purposes, which, that's just good economics. That's very ergonomic. And then a part of this build, we are also going to start building in some of the residential in this area. I'm thinking low density here, and then we're finally going to come back to our downtown and possibly get some medium and high density going on here. We're just going to kind of ping pong back and forth and grow them simultaneously. Could be a challenge, but it also sounds kind of fun to me, and it'll definitely keep me interested in builds, so I don't get too bored of doing the same thing over and over. But enough talk, let's go ahead and get into the build, guys. Alrighty guys, so it's been a while since we've posted anything, and there is a good reason for it, aside from my normal excuses. If you've been watching the weather lately, you would know that the Midwest, which is where I reside, got rocked by a snow and ice storm. And I'll put a picture of what was going on your screen, and I'm right where that arrow is pointing. And I just so happened to be at work when it all rolled in and the roads were undrivable, so I got stuck at work for 3 days. I was fortunate enough to put me up in a hotel, but I didn't have anything to do besides play on my phone, so that really sucked. And then when I got home, there were a whole bunch of chores waiting for me, so life kind of got in the way. The frustrating part is this first act and the opening intro was already recorded and ready to go, just waiting for me to finish it, and I couldn't get to it. Just life got in the way. So, sorry about that. But to make up for it, we are going to do a little bit longer of an episode today, because I want to catch up, so to speak, in the build, and I figured you guys have waited long enough, I just give you a little bit more content. So I start this build off by first making the interchanges that are going to get you into the community, and the first one I build is this roundabout interchange, and this isn't an interchange I build very often. I typically don't like the look of them, they don't feel natural or real to me, but clearly it is real because I stole this idea from the city of Medford as well. And showing you on your screen, there it is in real life. It looks good. It actually does look good on here. I think if it was out in the middle of a field, it wouldn't look good. But that neighborhood built around it makes it look really, really natural and like it belongs. So if it was good enough for Medford, I put it here in my city as well. And then the next interchange you're going to see me build is coming up in a second is the single point interchange. And I've built this quite a bit in City Skylines. It's just a very effective interchange. When it's built right, you get the lights and the crosswalks and everything built. It turns out very, very good. And it can move a whole bunch of traffic really efficiently. And I use a method that I call boxing, which is I use the off-ramps or the single lane highways to basically build a box, and then I run the main road it's going to connect to across. I use Move It to get the heights just right, then I connect everything up, and then I'll use the curve tool to hit a single point. It can be difficult with snapping, so I do suggest you play around and adjust the snapping as you go. I typically use snap to existing geometry and then 90 degrees for this, and it tends to work pretty well when I do that. Everything looks really crazy until I start deleting some of the segments out of here that are no longer needed, but the end result is really, really nice. And to make it look even better, you want to make sure you come in and do some of the finer detail work. I see these mistakes quite often actually on Reddit and Instagram and YouTube. People forget to come in here and upgrade the segments using the road tools. So you want that middle section to all be elevated because your highway's running underneath there. You don't want to leave that as a key wall. I've seen that a few times. But you also don't want to elevate the entire road because your road ends on either side. I leave those as key walls, or I'll put dirt and soil right underneath them because realistically you would not elevate all of this. Elevated roads are very, very expensive and costly to maintain, so cities and states or whatever governmental agency is not going to do that. They're going to take advantage of Mother Nature. And then another piece of advice I have is to go in there and do your own lights and lane math, because sometimes the AI gets it wrong. It did in that instance. I kind of sped through it and cut a lot of stuff out, but the intersection was a nightmare, so to speak. So I went in and did my own intersection and just made things make sense. Also, when you do that, the lane markings tend to look a lot better when you hand draw them. That's just my opinion. And now with the 2 main interchanges built, at least for the time being, there probably will be more additional to come, but for now this is enough. I start working on the first neighborhood, and there was no template for this neighborhood. I just built and filled as I saw fit. There was no rhyme or reason. I literally just had on a podcast that I was listening to and just went ahead and built. The main goals for the neighborhood was to cover as much space as we could, make it tight. Houses very close together. This is one of those things that while I was building it, I was very happy with it, but after the fact, I looked at it a little closer and realized the neighborhood wasn't as compact as I wanted it to be. When the houses start to come in and the residents move in, you'll see the yards are bigger than I wanted. I'm going to live with that mistake. I'm not going to go in and tear it apart, blow it up, and try again. I'm just going to chalk it up to a learning experience. It's not as tight knit as I wanted it to be. So now we begin work on the first dam in this episode, and we're going to replace the highway that was running here with the dam, because in this game they double as not only power stations but as roads, so it felt natural to put it here. It's going to act as an access point for the community while also providing them power. And like I said in the beginning of the episode, I've not really used dams, at least not in a serious sense. I would do a lot of comical plays with them to make poop canyons and stuff like that everybody in this game has done at some point, but I've never seriously tried to use them for their services. So this was a lot of learn as I go. There's a lot to dams in this game, like the heights of the terrain and the water flow rate, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to learn all that, so I kind of just bypassed it all. Anyways, I never really planned on the dams in this build to service as power stations anyways. They were always going to be of an aesthetic build. It just happens that they generate electricity, so we're gonna take some of that and offset some of our costs, I guess you could say. But again, these dams are here to create the lake, which has given us drinking water and a recreational area that's later to be built out. It's just a happy coincidence that they generate electricity. But since they do generate electricity, I figured I might as well build some maintenance buildings and a substation to go along with servicing them. So that's what I'm doing right here. Nothing fancy, it's just an office building that I put down using Find It and Plop the Growables, and then I just built my own little custom parking lot. Throughout the series, you're going to see me build different kinds of parking lots. I play with the networks that are actually parking networks, and then I will use the ploppable parking lots, and then I'll use domes parking spaces and just build my own using a surface tool. It kind of depends on what I'm in the mood for and what that specific area is calling for. So you don't really know what you're going to get. I just kind of play that by ear. But since these dams are more of an aesthetic feel for me, I wanted to have a lot of nature around them, which was kind of difficult with the terrain being what it is, because every map creator decides that the ocean needs to be everywhere. And what I mean by that is even lakes and rivers are extremely deep. So then I had to kind of come back in and elevate it and smooth everything out. So if you're a map creator and you're watching this, please do everyone a favor. And when you're creating the map, you don't have to run the lake into the center of the earth. It's just fine being 10 to 20 meters below the normal terrain. I promise, we will build around it. But part of the detailing I'm doing is I'm adding a whole bunch of trees. This is going to be a very forested area. And then here in a little bit, I'm going to put a whole bunch of random boulders around, and it really looks good. I end up really liking this area because the idea, if I could talk today, is this going to end up being a pretty recreational space. I don't do it in this episode. I plan on having an episode dedicated to just coming back to places I've already built on and sprucing them up, so to speak, adding a few more pieces. And I plan on putting walk paths and everything here. I just wanted to get the city actually built and moving forward, and building walk paths just kind of didn't fit into the picture I had. But right here, I am taking time to build out what is going to be a lake house. And I did this for two reasons. One, it was a learning experience for me to see if I could do it and to see how it would work. Because right now, we do not have docks or piers that I could find anyways on the PDX mods or anywhere. So I tried to be creative here, and what I did is I took the fence prop, the wooden fence, privacy fence prop. I can't remember the exact name of it, but you can see them there. The fence residential, there you go. And then I just flattened them all out, and I would move them into place as I needed to, and then use the Recolor mod to make them all the same color. This took me a long time to do because adjusting the heights is very difficult because they're props and they want to snap to the ground. But the end result, I think, is worth it. I'm sure later on when we get PDX mods, actual dock and pier assets are going to come out, and this is going to be redundant. But this is how I did it. So if you want to steal this idea, I don't mind. Just please give me a little bit of credit, because I honestly felt like a genius when I figured this out. And then to support the makeshift dock here, I ended up using clothesline props that you'll see me place down later. Oh no, actually I cut that, I'm sorry. I fully apologize. But I did use clothesline props as like the legs for the docks. And then I spent a good deal of time detailing out this area. I used a road as a guide and then used the surface network to build the driveway. Mainly because I didn't want to have an actual node there. It just breaks up that road and I don't want it. So again, I build one of these parking lots that I will soon become famous for wasting my time on. And now we begin work on the last phase of Act 1, where we built out the water treatment facility that would have been built alongside of the dams back in the day. Again, the idea was to create a large reservoir of water for the community to have potable drinking water and to create some recreational space. And this is a pretty straightforward build. It's very similar to what I've done in the past. If you follow the channel, it should look pretty familiar. I honestly don't know too many ways to build water plants. They all seem pretty standard. I did, however, have the City of Boston's Deer Island water treatment plant on my screen while I built this. So some inspiration was taken from that, though I don't know how much of it you can actually glean from it. Doing a side-by-side comparison, I don't know if there's anything that you could really compare them to, but maybe if you squint really hard you could see it. And I did overbuild this facility because those two pumping stations right there, they're generating a lot of cubic meters of water. I think millions of cubic meters of water. So a lot of water is going into the city. And then I'm also going to build the water treatment facility building right here to treat our sewage and add quite a few extensions. And the reason I did this is it's a little bit of future proofing. And I really don't want to build too many water facilities. I want this to kind of be the main one, and we're going to see how long it can service the community. If I have to add more, I will. Ideally, I'd rather not do that. But with all the major pieces now in place, I began detailing out the area. And to do this, I use a combination of the ploppable non-functional service buildings, some surfaces that I draw in, and I add quite a few decals. This adds a lot of character to the space, and it turns it from a forgettable necessity to an interesting piece worthy of a few Instagram posts. And I really do take advantage of the static ploppables here as well. The industrial storage tanks and that hazardous waste collection dome fit perfectly in the area. They look really awesome, especially after you sink them into the ground. The dome itself is just a great addition to any industrial storage area, so I suggest using it for your builds, because I plan on using that a lot more as the city grows. And I finished this area up with some static clarifiers. I don't know how many clarifiers would have been needed here or how many are necessary, but I just kind of went with what looked good. They're non-functional, they're purely aesthetic, so it doesn't really matter how many we have there, I guess. But overall, I think this area turns out great, especially when you add in all those few little details. I'll add a few pumps here and there, and I add a natural space here where that curve is with rocks and trees and everything to kind of blend it in, make everything as seamless as possible, kind of hiding this from the community because you wouldn't want to necessarily see it. You know it's there, but with a few trees and some nature around, you just kind of hide that up. But that will pretty much wrap up Act 1, guys. All that's left is the finer points of things, and that doesn't really require much explanation, so I'll just see you guys at the intermission. Alrighty guys, we are back live in game, and we're just chilling down here at the boathouse we built. I say it's a pretty sweet spot. A lot of good views down here. I like it a lot. And this is going to act as kind of a starting point for a future build where we do a whole bunch of recreational stuff on the lake for our citizens to enjoy. But that is a future episode. Moving along with the stuff that matters most in the episode, we built our first dam. And it appears to be pretty functional. People are driving on it. Let's see how it is operating, because I haven't looked at this yet. It is operating at the peak efficiency of 1%. So, top-notch stuff right there. But it's because it doesn't have any employees, and that's mainly because I haven't put any residential housing down yet. That's to come in the second half of the episode. So, top-notch stuff right there. Great planning on my part. And then we do have this facility down here that has no water or sewage treatment, so I'm sure that building's fun to be in. But this is going to kind of act as the office and maintenance center for the dam. That was my thought process anyways. I just didn't want to leave this out here. It felt empty without something next to it. And then y'all know what substations do, or transformer stations. You know what they're about. I don't have to explain that. Then we come over here to what we first built in the episode, and that would be the neighborhood. This got built first mainly because I felt like it. I just felt like building out the neighborhood first, so I did. It's a rather large neighborhood, but that's fine. Put a lot of cul-de-sacs in this because I feel like this would be the kind of space for that. Very suburban vibe. And we will cater to this community a little bit in the end of the episode because I'm thinking we're going to give them their services like the hospital or something over here, some death care, because I've always noticed early game you have a lot of people dying right out the gate, which is a little morbid, but it is what it is. Some fire stuff and a police station, you know, the basic services, and a few schools here and there. But nothing too crazy, just enough to get the community up and running. And then we come over here and we look at our understaffed and underpowered water treatment facility. I promise this will get fixed in the second act. It's not going to remain a dark spot forever. But I really like the way this turned out. It is pumping a whole bunch of water. I was wrong when I said millions of gallons. It looks like it's 50,000 cubic meters for one facility. So that's what, 100,000 cubic meters a month, which is still a lot of water. That should service our community for quite a long time. If I need to, I'll add some stuff, but overall, this area looks pretty good. Bunch of static buildings just going along with it, and some decals and everything. I had a lot of fun building that. So that was a good time. What are we going to do in the second half of the episode? Well, I kind of talked about it already. We're going to put in the housing up here, so this area is going to explode with houses. I plan on using a mixture of zoning and ploppables myself, just where it makes sense. Because everything starts off as a level 1, so those houses are going to look like crap. So to get them to level up quickly, I'm going to have to give them some services like I talked about: healthcare, education, fire, police, yada yada yada. And then we're going to have to cross this channel right here. So I plan on using another dam for that. And you know, it's going to be a pretty extensive build, and hopefully we can cover a lot of ground with it. Anyways, guys, if you are enjoying the episode so far, please do the typical YouTube stuff down below. And if I haven't earned that yet, hopefully I can earn it in the second act. And I'll see you guys at the end of the episode. So enjoy. So starting off Act 2 here, we build our second dam. And there's actually a lot to say about this dam and how it's going to fit into the bigger picture of things. Aside from the obvious functions that we've talked about at length in the first act, like creating the reservoir and generating power, it's also going to act as a connection between the communities that will reside on the lake. It's not only going to act as a service, but also a cultural and economic link for the residents. And while we do have the highway just a bit north that connects them, I feel the people here would rather avoid that mad rush of the highway and opt across here instead. It's going to offer a more direct connection, and it definitely has more scenery, which I know in-game doesn't mean anything, but in real life, I know people who opt to take longer routes to avoid highways entirely, and so they can enjoy the view while they're traveling a bit more. So I expect the dam is probably going to end up handling a high volume of traffic, and that's due to its location, because each side of the channel is going to have its own separate communities, but I plan on putting their own commercial centers, industries, and services within their communities. So I'm trying to curb the traffic as much as I can, but I do see the potential for a high volume. And more or less each community I build is going to have the essentials either within them or nearby to curb as much high volume traffic as best I can, but I don't really know how things are going to develop. And you know, that is half the fun of the game, is seeing what unfolds. And if the dam ends up not being able to handle the traffic and things bog down, I will build more bridges as we go along to alleviate the pressure. Only time will tell how this plays out. And now I get started on the residential area, and there really isn't a whole lot to say here. It's pretty straightforward. I end up using a mixture of low residential American zoning and European zoning, while also using some ploppables to fill the area out. The zoning ends up saving me a bunch of time as the area becomes more appealing as the houses level up, and it turns into the suburban image I do have in mind. I mainly plop houses where the zoning feature doesn't quite work right, such as open spaces, but most often it's on the cul-de-sacs, and I end up hand selecting the houses I like there, and hopefully they just stay there. In the past, zoning was kind of a cardinal sin to me. I never used it. I hated it, honestly, in City Skylines 1. I would end up placing everything myself, just to give it that look that I wanted, because in the past it was very cartoony, but the assets, at least the base assets in City Skylines 2, are much more realistic and more believable as a whole. So they're miles better than Skylines 1, so I can accept this for now. It'll also help me get these episodes done a lot faster, which I believe is well worth the lack in detail. But while I'm zoning this, I make sure to leave spaces between some of the houses, because this area, the houses are probably more well off, more economically sound, higher income. So they would have larger lot sizes to develop and make a larger footprint. They'd also want to have space away from their neighbors, so while they want to have people around them, they don't want those people to be too close. So I put an emphasis on making sure there is quite a bit of space. Unfortunately, when I was building this though, I think I left too much space between some areas and it looks a little awkward. So I come in later and try to fill that up. Some of it done off screen because it's a huge time suck. But again, there's not a whole lot to say about this, so I'm going to kind of let it speak for itself, and I'll see you when we start our next project. And now I place down our fire department for the area, and I ensure it's in a central location to provide the best coverage possible for the community. I also place down the static welfare office that's in the law enforcement tab, and this is going to act as a pseudo city hall for the area. You will often find in many cities that a fire station is connected to the city hall, and I can't say I know the exact reasoning behind this, but I do have a couple theories. One, it's to conserve space within the community because both require a plot of land, so why not put them together? And then the fire department is also a major player in how cities function, so having them close to the city hall is probably pretty beneficial for everybody involved. And I do apologize for the rain being on the screen. I completely forgot to disable precipitation, so we're going to see how the community responds to some wet weather. But I do spend a good bit of time detailing this space. I add some custom parking lots on the back side here, and that's for citizens and workers alike, because America. And when I add these, I do add some fencing to create a secure lot on the back side there. I also end up using that invisible road network to give access to the vehicles while making them drive where I want them to go. Instead of through the buildings, they drive around the buildings. And my main focus while building this was to make this area feel very, and I quote, civic. To achieve this, I used the gray herringbone paving stone surface, and that surface looks really nice while not being too flashy. So effective yet cost effective. I also fill in the open spaces using solely small checker grass surface. This gives the area a well-maintained image while not being too over the top. At least in my opinion. This does kind of have a look of grass that would be maintained by public works in a city. So it looks nice, but they're not going to spend all the time in the world creating, intricate designs. And then I end up finishing this area by using the parking networks to connect on the back side of the building. And I use the side street there so that traffic can flow a lot smoother on the main road in front of the buildings. That also ensures that fire trucks aren't impeded as much when they want to exit the facility. And I then surround the area with concrete and grass surfaces as I did on the front side, and I finish up by adding some foliage to make things not look so stale and bland. So I end up using a similar formula for the rest of the buildings in this episode. Nothing too groundbreaking. I basically just put parking around the building and then use the surfaces and trees to make the area, and I quote, pop. So now I think is a pretty good time to get to our YouTube comments because A, it's my favorite part of the episode, and B, we actually had quite a few I wanted to highlight here. So let's just dive right in. In alphabetical order, because that's how they save to the drive, we start off with Atif Ahmed, and he said, "Bruh, why have you turned off downloads?" He couldn't download the video, and I didn't realize that was an issue. It has since been rectified, and if we have any other problems where you guys can't download stuff, please let me know. It's typically a copyright issue. Next is my new best friend on the internet and apps, a DJ, says he thinks the Spaghetti Junction perfectly represents a high population / high density area like the East Coast, and he's excited to see things build up around it. I'm excited to see that too. I think it's going to look really good when things fill out. So thank you for the comment once again. Next we have a rather long one, but the gist of it from Mr. Coolman Craft is he thinks it'd be pretty good to see a community named Buffalo on the map. And that's a great name. I'm going to use that name, I promise you. And he says it'd be pretty good to put it in the corner of the map, which is a good idea. I was struggling thinking of ideas of what to do with the corners of the map because I didn't want to leave anything super underdeveloped because it feels odd, especially for a megalopolis area. So that gives me an idea for a community. I'll probably fly around Google Earth and look at different Buffalo communities to get my ideas. So thank you, sir, or ma'am. Next we have Hewer4064 asking if I could build a city like Herbal a holler. I didn't know what that was. I had to Google it, and here I am claiming to be a history major. They are, that's the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, as long as I pronounced that right. And I have no problem with trying something new. I've never built anything besides US or North American based cities. It's just what I'm comfortable with. It's what I know. But if we get the right and proper assets, that might be a fun build to do. So as of right now, probably not, because if I'm going to build it, I want to do it right, and we just don't have the tools for it yet. But remind me when we finally do get the tools, and I'll try. I will try my best. Next is a comment from Holly Sigma. Says he saw the videos and he thought there were like 5,000 or more. I'm not really sure what that means. I assume views or subscribers, not really sure. And then asked how many hours I have in CS1 and 2. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. It's a lot, an embarrassing amount if I'm being honest. The only defense I have is in CS1 I would leave the game running because how long it took to load. But yeah, the number is way too damn high, and it's way higher than my wife would like. Yeah, it's embarrassing, but this is my hobby, so it is what it is. Next we have Kodak29. Says awesome interchanges. It will be mesmerizing to see all the traffic flowing through it. And first off, great use of the word mesmerizing. I like that. And second, thank you for the compliment. I'm actually happy with the way they turned out. I usually am not, but this time I think I did a good job, so thank you. And next we have Mohammed Almar Zoki. Please don't be mad if I mispronounce that. I did my best. Says I should try uploading daily. I've got good content, or once every 2 days. Thank you for thinking I have good content. That is a great compliment. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you like to see it that often. The problem is my schedule is insane. I work 3 jobs technically, and I have a baby on the way, and that's really time consuming. I'll do the best I can to get these out as much as I can, but I just don't want to make you guys promises I can't keep. Next is from Robert Van Rees. Says, dude, the rest of the world should subscribe. Then waves at me and says, Happy New Year from the Netherlands. First off, Happy New Year to you. And second, it's awesome that you're from the Netherlands. That makes me happy that I have global reach. I'm taking over the world, one country at a time now. And as for the rest of the world subscribing, they definitely should. I'm a nice guy with nice videos, so they should reward that. So thank you for the comment. Next we have Unusual Crate, and he says he was a big Skylines 1 player, mostly experimenting with massive grids on flatlands. And they would try to do interstates, but no matter what, they didn't have that creative gene and cannot figure out how to make everything work. Yeah, it took me a long time too. Don't feel defeated. What actually ended up helping me was really, and I mean really, studying Google Earth and Google Maps, because Google Earth and Maps are different. Maps shows you like a good overview of how the streets function, whereas Earth lets you see it, if that makes sense. And then I watched a lot of other YouTubers do their builds and just kind of actually studied it like it was a test or something, like, oh, they did this. And then I just kind of copied and emulated it. And as I got better, I just started adding my own flavor. Sometimes you just gotta throw stuff at the dartboard and see what sticks. So best of luck to you. I'm sure you're doing fine. Don't worry about it. Next we have Wizard P, and he says, this was really great, just don't stop. I don't plan on stopping. I just don't know how frequently I will get to post. I'll do the best I can. But thank you. I appreciate you thinking it's great. Next, from Ziggy, says, hello, Legio. He's new to the channel, or she. They do love the spaghetti junction. With ours, from the UK, they have more lanes running through. An example would be east to west, main road. We will have more than 3 miles just before the junction until after the last junction, so it's easier when they split up. No speed lane in the middle, as will always be on the outside for them, the fast lane, or they have a roundabout on top to spread out those exits and entrances with main freeway / motorway underneath. I understand what he's saying. I probably just conveyed it really badly to you guys. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it probably is more efficient. The reason I put it on the inside is very simple. I live in St. Louis, and we have an express lane here. It's on I-70, and it runs right down the middle. It's one way, and its main function is to help you bypass all the exits on 70 and get you to the downtown as quick as possible. That's its main function. So I kind of just stole that idea. So that's why it happened the way it did. But that's all the comments I have, guys. I really appreciate it. You guys were very vocal on this episode, and that makes me very happy. If you like what you see, please do a comment, because while the like button and the subscribe button are amazing and great, we're closing in on 500 subscribers. The comments are what make me the most happy. So I appreciate it, and keep it coming. But now we'll get back to what's going on screen. And the screen shows us building our very first hospital for the region. I do enjoy building hospitals for some strange reason. I think it has something to do with how they're very large structures that serve a very vital role for the community, and they take a lot of planning to execute properly. And a part of that planning involves their location. And as you can tell, I built the hospital next to our highway. And if you ever look at how hospitals are generally placed nowadays, they will typically sit next to a highway, with a few exceptions here and there, primarily in your downtown regions being that exception. This allows for them to have a more rapid and easier transport for emergency vehicles and patients alike. Hospitals are hotspots for traffic, and to accommodate that, you'll typically see them built near highways or very built up arterial roads. Now, this hospital isn't based on any real-life counterpart. I built this custom to the space that was provided, and I used my own imagination on it. I have, however, spent a lot of time around hospitals and in them, and this was for work purposes, I swear. So I've become pretty familiar with their design. I'm not saying I'm an architect for them, but this is generally what I see when I'm at them. I then end up surrounding the building with the parking networks like we've been doing, just a lot more on a much grander scale here, because patients need a lot of parking. And then I end up using our surfaces and a lot of decals to kind of rough everything up, and I add this ambulance depot on the back and try to fit it in as best as I could, because the ambulances need a spot to enter the hospital at. I'm also debating if I want to add more medical services or a giant parking garage to this location in the future, or if I should just leave it as is. I do like how it's laying out right now, and I think it's good enough, especially for the time being, but let me know in the comments what you guys think down below. Overall, I do like the way this turned out, and with the city growing up around it, I think it will seamlessly blend into the community. Now, to address our need for death care, I built my own custom cemetery. I personally don't like the cemetery asset they give you in game, so I will usually build my own graveyards. And to anchor the resting grounds, I use the crematorium. This asset does look like something you'd see in real life, so it's the perfect candidate to anchor this place. And you'll often see funeral homes at the entrances and have the tombs and the grave sites all surrounding the area. And I chose this location because in my headcanon, this was actually an older cemetery that had been in the area for quite a while. And when they were building the highway networks, the community voted together to have it run next to the cemetery. And that's often the case in real life. I often drive by cemeteries on highways or main arterial roads because they disrupt the community less. And I mean, who's really going to complain in a cemetery? They're not too vocal there. But I end up providing some parking spaces on the back. I surround the area with the fence, then slap down some trees to give just a little bit of detail. I didn't plan on detailing this space a whole lot because its residents really probably don't care what it looks like. To finish up the primary services for the area, I add an elementary school into the neighborhood. This is so their IQ can be above room temperature. I give the school no detail because I think keeping it simple here is probably for the best. The neighborhood growing around it will act as the detail for it. I then add some office and commercial spaces to the region. I place the offices by the hospital, pretending that they are somehow affiliated with the hospital, possibly doctor's offices or something along those lines. And then I line one of our arterial roads with some commercial. Now this is subject to change in future builds, but for now we just needed somewhere for the people to shop. I then come back over to the downtown region and I finally add in some row house zoning here, and I will finish it up with adding one spot of high rise. This area is going to develop pretty slowly and I plan to fill it out as the builds go on. I'm not going to do it all in one big go probably, because realistically that's not how downtowns are made anyways. You don't get skyscrapers on day one. But I will see you guys in the live play in just a little bit. Alrighty guys, so we're back live. Figure we could recap a few things and talk about what's to come next. So we'll start with what's on screen. We have our hospital complex here. I like the way it turned out. Might be a bit more parking than needed for a hospital that size, but I think it looks good regardless. I like it. Has some of our offices here on the back. I had to add some makeshift parking because it didn't look right. I did that off screen, so you didn't miss anything. We have our single point interchange. Not a lot of usage just yet, but I promise this will start to see a lot of vehicles using it. Coming down here, we have our roundabout interchange that we stole from Medford, Massachusetts, and I like the way that looks. It's growing on me. I typically don't like these, but it is growing on me. Right next to it, we have our makeshift cemetery, and this I think looks pretty good. It's really straightforward, really simple, but I think simple can sometimes look best. Yeah, I think it looks good. Panning out a little bit, we have our neighborhood here, and it's filling in quite nicely. The homes are leveling up because we got the services in. They're going to level up more when I start getting parks, recreation, and some of the other services in the area. Coming over here, we didn't talk about it much in the fast play. We have our small little police station, and I think that looks awesome right there. Did a little bit of detailing on it. Looks good. It fits in really well. It's kind of got that New England vibe because it's the UK police station, so that turned out pretty good. Right here we have our City Hall Fire Station complex, and this was probably one of my better detailings. I like this. I could rough up the parking lots, but in my mind this is a newer complex, so it's not been worn down yet. So that all looks pretty good. We'll come over here and take a quick peek at all this stuff. We have the second dam that we built. It's doing dam things, holding water, moving water, and letting people drive. People are using it, so that makes me happy. Not too much to discuss there besides, let's see here. It's generating 109 kilowatts. It's at 100% usage. So its efficiency, it's only 1%, but that's because the water depth. whatever. I think that's something I can fix later on. I'm not fixing it right now. And then over here we have our water treatment facility, but if I take that off, they have massive garbage problems, which that's okay for right now. I'm going to fix that in the next episode. There's a lot to do in the next episode as well. And we talked about that dam at length in the intermission, which if you missed it, you should just go back. So, okay, what does the future hold? Future holds a little bit more building of the downtown. Not a whole lot to see here. We'll fill that out as we go. But I'm thinking we're going to do some work down here and get some industry, possibly a cargo harbor in there, oil, stuff like that. We'll see how that develops. We're going to have to rework some rail networks. We're going to expand this area a little bit, and we obviously had to get some waste treatment in here. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way things are shaping up. If you guys are too, please do the typical YouTube stuff down below if I've earned that. And I will see you guys in the next episode.